This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello there and welcome to Global Business Africa. We'll be giving you insight into Africa's business and financial markets. I'm Uche Okoronkwo, coming to you from Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Let's start with a look at the markets. Now, emerging market stocks were pretty flat today as sentiment was dampened by Wall Street marking its worst day in a month. The S&P 500 slipped almost 2% on the day. Now, traders are saying that investors are waiting for the outcome of the U.S. presidential election next week. Also, rising coronavirus cases in the U.S. and Europe brought about new curbs on economic activity. And of course, we saw South Africa's JSE moving along a similar line. But of course, locally, investors are also waiting for the medium-term budget policy statement tomorrow. Now, also coming up on today's show, Bitcoin reaches for the skies after more than a year of dismal performance. China's industrial profits hit a 10% rise in September. And we go on a fishing expedition in one of Nigeria's largest fishing settlements. Now, the hype around Bitcoin is revving up again. The digital token climbed above $13,000 this month for the first time in over a year. That's after a midweek announcement that PayPal will now allow transactions in crypto. It is the latest in a series of mainstream acknowledgements that digital tokens exist, and of course, clients want to trade in them. However, some critics still argue that there's little evidence that Bitcoin and its digital counterparts are any closer to displacing traditional currencies. They believe digital tokens have simply morphed into another asset class, which is, of course, similar to gold. Well, let's delve further into Bitcoin's performance this year and the prospects for digital currencies going forward. We're joined by Marius Ritz. He is the General Manager for Africa at cryptocurrency firm Luno. Great to have you on the show with us, Mr. Ritz. Now, of course, Bitcoin is spiking above $13,000. We saw that happen this month, and that reignited some hype around cryptos. Of course, some analysts are saying that data still shows that hardly anyone uses Bitcoin for anything beyond speculation. So do you agree with that view, Mr. Ritz?
Good evening. Look, I think price volatility makes it very attractive for traders and for speculators to bet on short-term price movements. And we see this in almost all financial markets around the world, including commodities. But as you mentioned, Bitcoin has seen a strong 2020 so far and has outperformed both the S&P 500 and gold. And the price is up more than 80% year to date. And we have seen increased institutional presence, as you mentioned. So large companies, large listed corporations in the US mainly, such as MicroStrategy and Square, started adding more than $400 million worth of Bitcoin to their balance sheets as an inflation hedge. So we've seen more sophisticated investors enter the market, and this is a trend that we're expecting to continue. And even more so when regulators, especially in Africa, make their positions known. And so I think apart from the investment speculation use case, certain financial and also political challenges that we've seen in certain African markets, such as Nigeria, where at this point there's a shortage in US dollars, and that's leading to people and businesses reverting to cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin for cross-border payments. And that is in an effort to continue or to keep doing business and to survive. So many large corporations across Africa have looked at crypto as a means of moving funds cross-border or repatriating profits from certain markets. So no, I think definitely not only speculation. I think over the next couple of months and years, we will see lots of new funds. So traditional investors looking at cryptocurrency for the first time, and we'll also see the payments use case coming to the fore quite strongly.
Well, you're certainly tapping into that need. Luno recently launched a Bitcoin savings wallet, which basically allows customers to use Bitcoin as an option for earning interest on their savings. So what has your research shown about the prospects for such a service or for such services, especially in Africa?
Yes, our savings wallet allows customers to earn up to 4% interest on their Bitcoin balance in their savings accounts with no fixed terms or no admin fees. And this was off the back of a strong customer demand, which was further strengthened by the global economic uncertainty that we're seeing globally with interest rates in certain parts of the world at record lows or even at negative rates. So a survey conducted by Luno found that more than a third of people are not currently earning any interest on their cash savings at all. And with inflation rates above zero in most African markets, this means that their money will have even less purchasing power each year. So I think, and even more so, our research also found that in Nigeria, more than 4 out of 5 cryptocurrency owners think that the Bitcoin price will be higher by the end of this year, and they plan to hold their cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin, or they plan to buy more. So I think for these customers that understand the risks, they have a long-term view of the market. I think for them, the option then to grow their Bitcoin holdings through the power of compound interest is definitely something that excites them.
Now, of course, this growing need and interest in cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and digital currencies, it's now global. In fact, recently PayPal announced that it will allow transactions in crypto now, which is considered a major acknowledgement of digital currencies, especially from mainstream merchants. What's your take on how big this is for the crypto digital currencies space going forward?
It's a very big move. I think the main challenge that we're still facing today as an industry is providing consumers around the world with safe and easy access to cryptocurrency. That is a massive challenge, especially across Africa, where it's very difficult for people to use their local currency to convert into cryptocurrency and vice versa on trusted platforms. So PayPal has a customer base of just over 300 million customers. And as a start, it will allow the US customers to buy and sell certain cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin and Ethereum on its platform. And I think also importantly, they will also enable customers to use Bitcoin for payments at I think roughly 13 million merchants that they have worldwide. So importantly, PayPal is a regulated platform. They have a trusted brand. I think consumers will certainly trust them with their funds. And we expect more payments and more fintech apps to follow. And there's a very strong retail demand out there. We also know that Cash App, which is owned by Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, they had big inflows, investment inflows into the app in the third quarter of 2020 as well. So a big retail demand, and I think most fintech apps will look to add cryptocurrency brokerage or the option to buy and sell in the near future.
Now, the IMF said something interesting recently. It said central bank digital currencies could replace traditional cash, especially in cross-border payments going forward. Now, are we seeing central banks finally softening up and starting to show interest in digital currencies? We know in countries like Nigeria, they're starting to formalize it. But on a global level, what are we seeing?
I think we're seeing a slow and gradual shift to digital forms of money. It's part of a generational change that's driven by the people who've grown up with technology and that see the world in a different way. I think most central banks around the world would agree that the current international monetary system is out of date and probably needs an upgrade, and that is Luno's mission as well, to upgrade the world to a better financial system. We think and we know that businesses and individuals need cheaper, faster, more secure, and also more inclusive access to money, especially across the African continent. And so I think this is why earlier this year the G20 then asked the IMF to look into the macroeconomic implications of global stablecoins. So from our perspective, we support cooperation and interaction between fiat currency and then cryptocurrency. And if major central banks decide to issue their own digital currencies or versions of that, then I think it would be a significant step forward to upgrading the world to a better financial system, and it will help consumers to understand the concept of digital currencies better.
Well, we'll certainly be watching that space more closely now. And many thanks for your insights, Mr. Ritz. Of course, that's Marius Ritz. He's a general manager for Africa at cryptocurrency firm Luno. And let's move on now. Egypt's central bank has dismissed the chairman and managing director of the Commercial International Bank over what it described as serious violations of the country's banking laws. Now, the central bank has not released any details of the accusations, but says preliminary investigations reveal alleged financial malpractice in one of Egypt's top banks. From Cairo, here is Yasser Kim with the details.
The news of Hisham Izz Al-Arab's dismissal has taken the financial markets by storm. Al-Arab, who served as chairman of the CIB since 2002, had been considered one of the top bankers in Egypt and in the Arab world. The bank's shares tumbled 10% on Sunday and Monday at the Egyptian Stock Exchange, pulling down the overall stock exchange by 3.5%. CIB has the heaviest weight in the Egypt stock market with over 37%.
This is partly because the central bank did not clarify what the charges against the CIB are, opening the door for speculation and panic. The volatility in the stock market is also due to the size of the bank. It accounts for nearly 40% of the EGX. The problem is if the central bank report comes out with heavy corruption charges, it could destabilize the bank, could lower its international ratings from the current B positive, and the bank could pay huge fines as well.
There were fears of a stampede by CIB clients to withdraw their money from the award-winning financial institution, which has 207 branches and serves 1.4 million customers. But it never happened. Some experts say it's evidence of the strong base built by the sacked chairman, who is among the country's leading bankers and a well-known figure in Middle Eastern finance.
There has not been a meltdown by clients and depositors because they know the bank is on a strong footing. It is also a sign of confidence in the whole banking sector. Egyptians know they are safe from any issues in the financial markets because there have been multiple political and economic crises in the last decade, and it never affected depositors' money.
Financial credit institutions have issued reports predicting CIB, which is Egypt's largest bank and whose shares are cross-listed on the London Stock Exchange, will be able to weather the storm. The bank reported net profits of about $318 million during the first half of 2020.
The bank was awarded the best in emerging markets worldwide 3 times in the last 4 years. It has assets worth about $11 billion and serves 710,000 clients in Egypt alone with 7,000 employees. With time, it will overcome the crisis.
We've seen a 7% drop in CIB shares yesterday and only 2% drop today. I expect it will rebound by next week because the price now is attractive to investors. Just like at the London Stock Exchange, after the bank's shares fell by 17% on the first day, they rebounded to normal levels now. This eased the fears of investors here in Egypt and kept their appetite open for the bank's stocks.
For the time being, non-executive board members led by prominent financier and investment banker Sharif Sami have temporarily replaced the former chairman and his board to try and steady the ship. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
And let's head to South Africa now. The World Bank has advised the government to trim its wage bill if it wants to qualify for a loan estimated at $2 billion. Now, it also says the funds should not be used to bail out insolvent state-owned companies. However, these conditions have now stalled those negotiations that commenced in April. This year, the South African government has turned to multilateral lenders to kickstart an economy that has been forecasted to contract the most in 9 decades. Finance Minister Tito Mboweni is expected to outline plans to fund a revival in output when he presents the medium-term budget policy statement on Wednesday. He is also under a lot of pressure to earmark more money to bail out those state companies. Let's now take a look at some other corporate headlines today. Kenya Airways has spent around $572,000 in 2.5 months to quarantine its cabin crew in Nairobi's high-end hotels. The spending comes at a time when the carrier was also cutting workers' pay to preserve cash and to stay afloat. The airline made the payments to 4 Points by Sheraton, as well as Hilton Garden Inn, Boma Hotel, and Crown Plaza Hotel. Meanwhile, Japan's ANA Holdings says it will retire more than 1/10 of its Boeing fleet and delay 2 aircraft orders to help rein in costs and survive a collapse in air travel. Now, forecasting a record operating loss of $4.82 billion for the year to March 31st, Japan's biggest airline says it will also temporarily transfer more than 400 workers to other companies and ask those remaining to accept pay cuts or unpaid leave. Meanwhile, British bank HSBC plans on revamping its business model by turning its main source of income from interest rates to fee-based businesses. This is after its quarterly profit fell by about 35%. It will also accelerate plans to shrink in size and slash costs further than previously suggested. Now, the planned changes will mark one of the biggest shifts in HSBC's strategy to date and will also bring annual costs to below $31 billion by 2022. And finally, in Nigeria, profit of Irish beer maker Guinness fell by 129.1%. According to the firm, the last quarter performance of fiscal 2020 was significantly impacted by restrictions due to COVID-19. Gross profit was down by 16.9%, while revenue plunged by 21%. Its competitors, international breweries and Nigerian breweries, also took a major hit, proving that 2020 has been quite a tumultuous year for all companies operating in the brewery manufacturing sector. And that is a look at our corporate headlines. Well, we are taking a short break now, still to come on the show. Businesses in Ghana are ready to take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area. And intercity travel resumes with stricter COVID-19 regulations in Zimbabwe.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global business, only on CGTN.
Every story starts out like this.
Okay, we'll head up now.
But beyond the rush of the numbers, there's always a more fundamental question. What happened? Who has been affected? When market-moving decisions are made, who's responsible? And why?
Let's get some reaction on ground. Joining us in Johannesburg is Sumitra Naidu.
Hello, Nairobi.
This is how all stories begin. See how they end. Only on Global Business.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues for taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Welcome back. Now, businesses in Ghana are gearing up for the start of the African Continental Free Trade Area from January next year. The agreement was due to come into force in July, but was postponed because of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, as lockdown restrictions slowly ease, small and medium-sized enterprises are increasing production in the hope of being able to export more goods and services across Africa. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
The African Continental Free Trade Area begins in just 2 months, and this food processing company in Accra, Nkulenu, is ramping up production of canned palm nut soup. The firm hopes the new Africa trade deal will make it easier to export their products across the continent.
Working with in Africa, you know, is very tedious. Let me put it this way. The reason being that, you know, the restrictions, some of the restrictions on the road, for instance, the borders before you get to Nigeria, you know, if you don't have money, you can't cross it easily. Even though we are registered, we have every document, we have a NAFDAC and all that, but it's not easy for us to access the Nigerian market.
As the global economy is hard hit by the coronavirus pandemic, free trade across Africa is becoming increasingly important, and it's hoped that the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement will allow 1.2 billion people in Africa to trade more easily between themselves. Small and medium-sized enterprises like Nkulenu are expected to benefit more from AfTA because it offers them lower or no tariffs and more access to intra-African trade. It will also be easier for Africans to set up businesses in other African countries.
If the AfCFTA does not result in inclusive trade and broad-based economic activity, it shall not resonate with Africans. In this regard, we are exploring various digital-enabled platforms that are aimed at enhancing market access and trade connectivity of small medium enterprises to new markets across the African continent.
This conference with small and medium-sized enterprises and policymakers in Accra is aimed at preparing Ghanaian businesses for the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area from January.
The Continental Free Trade Agreement is set to provide more opportunities for small and medium-sized enterprises like this. And here at Food Processing Company in Nkulenu, they are already working on ways of preserving and packaging their products to try and take advantage of the new export markets.
But with barely 2 months for the free trade area to begin, Africa's largest economy, Nigeria, has not ratified the agreement, which means this food processing company may still find it difficult exporting their products into the West African country. The Nigerian government says it is still consulting with opposing groups, including the Nigerian Manufacturing Association, who argue the agreement could pose a threat to the domestic economy.
We need everybody on board, and especially, it is not Nigeria alone that is going to lose. Also, countries that are interested in exporting there also will have issues, because now that they are not a member, they cannot liberalize their tariffs for you to enjoy. Neither will they also enjoy the liberalized tariff from another country. And so it's really a problem.
It's unclear if Nigeria will be on board before the Continental Free Trade Area starts next year. Some businesses in Ghana fear the absence of Nigeria may hamper the agreement's success, but they hope their products can capture other large African markets that have already ratified the agreement. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Now, the European Union is backing former Nigerian Finance Minister Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala to head the World Trade Organization. Iweala and South Korean Trade Minister Yoon Myung-hee are the two finalists to replace Brazilians Roberto Azevedo at the helm of the firm. Now, this means that for the first time in its 25-year history, the WTO will be headed by a woman. Reuters quotes an official who says that EU support for Okonjo-Iweala is considered a strong signal to reinforce the multilateral order and a sign of mutual trust between the bloc and Africa. Okonjo-Iweala is 66 years old and previously served as Nigeria's foreign minister. She's an economist and development specialist serving as board chair of Global Vaccine Alliance, Gavi. And heading to Nigeria now, the country has a high demand for fish and is ranked as the second largest fish producer in Africa, with an annual production of 1 million metric tons. Now, the West African nation has been focusing on driving its economy through the aquaculture industry. But of course, sea pirates are hampering those activities in a sector that employs over 8 million Nigerians directly and a further 20 million indirectly. Here's CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam with more.
Ndifreke Williams is a fisherman in Ibono community, one of Nigeria's fishing settlements in the country's southern region. It's the only business he's ever done in the past 28 years, and a lucrative one at that. It earns him enough not just to fend for his family, but also to reinvest in his fishing business. Fish is an important part of household diets in Nigeria, making up 40% of the country's protein intake.
Depending on movement of fish in the ocean, we could make a great catch. Many times, we make enough catch that can help us buy an outboard engine, which costs about 1.6 million naira. So that means a lot. That's when the floater thing comes in. The floater found inside some fish is very useful. And we sell the fish and the thing they call floater separately.
It helps us. It helps us a lot. It helps us to send our children to school. That is, some of us, they are using it to build house. So fishing business in Ibono is very good.
Ibono Fishing Market in southeast Akwa Ibom State attracts businesses both locally and internationally. The market sells between 800,000 to 1 million bags of fish daily. But attempts to boost output is being threatened by activities of sea pirates.
Sea pirate,
sometimes they collect outboard engines from us, collect fishing materials from us. The sea pirates, while sailing in the ocean, doing our business, trying to catch the fish, they will sail towards our boats in search of what to rob from us. If God favors you, they'll leave you, but that's after beating you mercilessly. They sometimes go as far as chopping people's fingers off. They majorly target fishermen with new outboard engines. And they usually get their information from people close to the business of fishing.
Nigeria ranks among Africa's largest producers of fish. A recent government report shows that the West African country could boost global fish revenue by $32 billion. Now, fishers and traders here say to achieve that would mean beefing up the security along the waterways to end activities of sea pirates. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Meanwhile, in Egypt, authorities have approved the resumption of flights to Libya. The decision follows Libya's move to gradually open its airspace. At least 5 flights will take place weekly between the two nations and will increase over time. Here's Adel El Maroui with more.
While Libya is preparing to restart operations at 10 of its domestic airports, Egypt gives the green light for direct flights with Libya to resume. The move will save time for travelers between the two neighbors who have been forced to transit through other countries.
It's a very important step for the many Libyans who seek healthcare in Egypt, who have homes, businesses, and many errands in Egypt. This will also enrich the stagnant ties between Cairo and Western Libya, in a time the nation is moving to create a new executive authority.
Yet none of the first scheduled flights will be to Western Libya. The nation's Africa Airways will operate 5 flights weekly between Egypt's Mediterranean city Alexandria with Tobruk in East Libya. The next destination will be El Abraq, another eastern city.
The resumption of flights will be subject to severe measures imposed from the Egyptian side. Libya is at the peak of its phase 1 of the pandemic. More importantly, security personnel will be reviewing the profiles for all Libyans coming into Egypt. Cairo fears that there may be infiltration of militia fighters and their leaders into the country.
Cairo has previously announced arresting several Libyans coming to Egypt with forged travel documents. Despite restrictions, for Libya, resuming an additional route will help its aviation sector recover from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
For the airline companies, employees have not been paid for more than 8 months. The services company have been struggling to pay salaries for about 30 months. Airport staff were not sacked because the state takes care of them.
Cairo suspended flights completely with Libya when the Libyan civil war intensified last year.
Cairo is proceeding slowly and cautiously in the resumption of flights with Libya. To Egypt, possible security breaches outweigh the economic benefits from operating flights that have phenomenal demands in the two countries. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
And on to Zimbabwe now. The government recently authorized the resumption of intercity travel as it further opens up its economy. It is expected to yield positive results in the transport sector amidst the coronavirus pandemic. Here's CGTN's Terry Wangari with that report.
Transport operators can now breathe a sigh of relief after Zimbabwe's government lifted restrictions on travel. Passengers can now gear up for long-distance movement amid government calls for an increase in public transport.
The opening up of the intercity and the economy in general has meant that there are more passengers traveling. So that means we need more transport, public transport to be on the road. Unlike the current situation where there's shortage of transport and there is some effect with regards to the interchange of passengers between intercity and urban transport, where there are less Zupcos at urban transport and there are now more people traveling at intercity.
The government says bus operators have failed to meet the stipulated COVID-19 protocols. Operators are expected to obtain a COVID-19 compliance certificate, which requires them to have an operating address. Failure to meet the requirements has led to the rapid rise of private vehicles operating as an alternative.
Over 40,000 combis are parked and there are over 500 to 700,000 people, including crew and other workers and dependents in the downstream industries that have been affected by the parking of those small combi vehicles. As small operators, we cannot afford that, so we need to be operating in groups. So we are now urging operators to come into groups and make sure that they get those COVID certificates as an association rather than as individuals.
The union representing operators is now lobbying the government to allow critical compliance guidelines of COVID-19 to be followed.
There's need for relaxation to make sure that everyone plays his role, at the same time making sure that the major requirements are met, which is the sanitization of passengers, the taking of temperature, the wearing of PPE by crew, and also making sure that the passengers have got the masks whilst they are in the queue or boarding or inside the vehicle. Those are the major issues that needs to be stressed upon.
Strict new operational procedures and an upgrade of terminuses are among measures being introduced to ensure the resumption of intercity bus services and prevent further spread of the coronavirus. Terry Wangari, CGTN.
You are watching Global Business Africa. We're going to take a short break now, but still coming up on the show. China's industrial profits hit a 10% rise in September. And the Ant Group, the parent company of mobile payment giant Alipay, is now the world's biggest IPO.
business in Africa is at a crossroads. We celebrate those who are adopting and thriving despite the challenges, from grassroots to big businesses. Global Business takes you along for the ride as we track the making of a giant. Only on CGTN.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what do you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
And now to the latest on China's economy. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that profits at the country's industrial firms totaled 646 billion yuan. That's nearly $97 billion in September, a 10% rise compared to last year. The latest uptick marks 5 straight months of growth in the sector. From January to September, industrial profits fell 2.4% on an annual basis to 4.37 trillion yuan. Now, analysts are saying the numbers point to a firm recovery from the coronavirus shock in the manufacturing sector. The recovery has also been spurred by exports, backlogs in demand, and government stimulus. For more on China's industrial sector's recovery, CGTN's Ying Junyi dives into the details.
Profits in 21 of the 41 industrial sectors surveyed by the Statistics Bureau, including high-end manufacturing and emerging industries, surged in September. Other sectors, such as automaking, also saw more modest recoveries. At the same time, reductions in company expenditures helped the profit picture. Automation company SensePoach says COVID-19 is being gradually brought under control, plus improved demand in the market, helped manufacturers like them recover.
We were impacted heavily at the beginning, but later we saw the outbreak gradually coming under control, and the demand for automation products was still there. Domestic automation companies are now making orders, while foreign companies are still impacted by COVID-19. We've seen a growth in orders since July, and the performance of our company this year will be at least at the same level as last year.
Li says supportive policies including easing tax burdens and a reduction in bank interest rates that came into effect in the first half gave manufacturers like them a better chance to get through the difficult time.
Companies like us, we focus more on R&D, which means a lot of expenses and labor costs in early stages. So support from the government is quite important for us.
Some software makers have seen the chance to expand their business as COVID-19 boosted the need for contactless technology. Software maker Linkage expects that it will see a 20% surge in its income this year.
We found demand for our products is actually growing. More companies now require a contactless workspace, which means an increase in demand for software. To us, it's an opportunity.
Though industrial profits have been rebounding since May, the overall performance of the country's industrial sector still remains sluggish. While September industrial profits rose nicely, the profits at China's major industrial firms still fell 2.4% year-on-year in the first 3 quarters. Experts say the performance of China's industrial sector still faces pressure, and that producer prices are not expected to rise for at least the next few months.
So there's one very crucial factor to affect the PPI or industrial profits is the global commodity prices. And we are just on the early stage of the recovery, and the global central banks are still running out of the tools to continue to boost the economy if there's any needs. So in the next few quarters or even in entire 2021, I expect the global economy, the recovery probably would be still very moderate.
The country's annual factory gate prices have been in negative territory since February and saw a 2.1% year-on-year decline in September. Ying Jun, ICS for CGTN Shanghai.
Meanwhile, South Korea's economy returned to growth in the third quarter, recovering from its sharpest contraction in more than a decade. That is as the government pushed through stimulus measures and major trading partners eased coronavirus restrictions. Asia's fourth largest economy grew by a seasonally adjusted 1.9% in the September quarter from the June quarter, logging its fastest expansion since the first quarter of 2010. Now, that, of course, reverses a more than 3% decline in the second quarter, which was the sharpest since 2008. The government last month began rolling out the final of 4 extra budgets to inject a total of about $274 billion of fiscal stimulus. Now, exports soared more than 15% in the third quarter in sequential terms, rebounding the fastest since 1986. And reversing a more than 16% contraction in the second quarter. Meanwhile, Seoul city government has unveiled a plan to boost urban farming across the capital. This comes with the aim to make Seoul a greener place while helping create jobs and enabling people to grow their own food. Jack Barton has more.
Blooming flowers, budding fig trees, rice and fresh, as well as slightly out-of-season vegetables, grown on the concrete roof of a big mall in Seoul. All part of an urban farm initiative, begun in 2012, that's getting a new boost. There's already around 200 hectares of urban farmland in Seoul. The plan is to expand that by at least 40 hectares over the next 4 years. The Seoul government says it will invest the equivalent of more than $216 million to expand urban farms and teach farming skills.
The goal is to foster 1 million urban farmers to make Seoul healthier.
It's not just plants that make Seoul greener. The CEO of Urban Bees Seoul tells me his bees have a pollinating range of up to 4 kilometers.
In that area, the growth rate of flowers will increase by 20%, so there will be an increase in flowers, and more insects will inhabit the area. So more small birds will naturally come to feed on them.
Park Jin keeps bees on rooftops as well as at parks, where he shows me the food stocks these honey producers are preparing for the long winter.
In the middle of the Seoul forest, bees can grow healthily enough in such a space to distance themselves from people, and we can keep bees without problems, without any harm on people.
Urban farming doesn't have to involve bees, fruit or vegetables.
Even if there's just lawn, and in this case a lot of bugs on a building, that still dramatically cuts down on energy bills by providing great insulation, which in turn cuts down on carbon emissions.
Even better if it's fed by rainwater and shares space with a few solar panels. Horizontal and vertical gardens are transforming the city. The government also wants to transform urban culture by fostering intimate farm communities.
For most people who live in the city, there's trouble communicating, but now we still have classes despite the pandemic.
The seeds of the new scheme have been sown among a new crop of urban farmers, understandably dreaming of a bountiful harvest for the pantry, the environment, and, of course, the community. Jack Barton, CGTN, Seoul.
Meanwhile, Ant Group, the parent company of China's mobile payment giant Alipay, now has the world's biggest initial public offering, and that's after it released details of its IPO on Monday. Here's CGTN's Shu Mingqi reporting.
I'm proud to announce that just last night in Shanghai, we decided the final pricing for Ant's IPO. This will be the biggest IPO in human history and the first time such a big offering is priced outside of New York City. It's something we wouldn't dare to think of 5 years or even 3 years back, but the miracle has happened.
The miracle Jack Ma referred to during Shanghai's Bond Summit just days ago has finally become a reality. On Monday, China's leader in fintech Ant Group simultaneously released the final pricing for its IPO on the mainland and Hong Kong stock exchanges. Nearly 1.7 billion shares were made public for both markets at a price of 68.8 yuan or 80 Hong Kong dollars per share. Although the sale of shares to retail investors in the mainland won't officially start till Thursday, Ant has already completed the allocation of Shanghai shares to institutional buyers. And from those figures, we know the shares were already more than 200 times oversubscribed. In other words, they're immensely popular. Experts say the world's biggest IPO taking place in China will have wider implications.
Well, you see, in the past, the largest market to raise capital had always been considered the United States, and it still is dominant in the world's picture. But now we look at Shanghai and we look at Hong Kong as alternatives that they are able to pull off the world's largest IPO and raise that much money shows a tremendous change in the marketplace.
Given the current pricing, Ant's total market value will amount to 2,100 billion yuan or more than $300 billion. Shimengqi, CGTN, Shanghai.
And the Art Plus Shanghai Exhibition International Fair has concluded with sales surpassing 10 million yuan. The fair attracted about 70 galleries and art institutions. CGTN's Zhang Hong was one of the 15,000 visitors who attended the event and brings us the highlights.
As part of the urban art section, toys attracted numerous visitors. Aside from the famous beer bricks toys from Japan, a range of domestic toys adapted from the paintings and sculptures of Chinese artists proved popular. The exhibitor said many artists are now collaborating with companies to make peripheral products as a way to market their artwork.
People like it mainly because it's fun, which makes it acceptable to all ages. While the original artwork may cost several million yuan, a peripheral product costs several thousand yuan or less when it is remade into daily necessities in collaboration with fast fashion brands.
The market size of such toys soared from 6.3 billion yuan in 2015 to 20.7 billion yuan last year. It is expected to reach 26.2 billion yuan this year. The urban art section received notably more attention than last year as graffiti art created a hotspot for selfies and snapshots.
We wanted to include various forms of art. The urban art section turned out to be very popular among youngsters in the past few days. I think both the market and the public now expect to see different forms of art in the artwork trading sector.
This year's Art Plus Shanghai attracted about 70 galleries and art institutions. Amid the coronavirus pandemic, some foreign exhibitors still managed to participate. One exhibitor from South Korea sees the fair as a major opportunity.
We sold 12 pieces of artwork at last year's fair. We have confidence in Art Plus Shanghai. It presents an opportunity to reach out to more people, and we will keep participating in the future.
With 15,000 visitors, sales reached 12 million yuan over 4 days. But for individuals who missed out, the fair's virtual showroom will remain online for 1 year. Zhang Hong, ICS for CGTN, Shanghai.
And shifting focus now, let's take a look at commodity markets today. Oil prices climbing towards $41 a barrel. And that's as oil companies shut down some U.S. Gulf of Mexico oil output due to a hurricane. But surging coronavirus infections and rising supply expected from Libya did limit those gains. Meanwhile, we saw gold prices up today. A fresh wave of coronavirus infections did raise some concerns over a global economic recovery and, of course, bolstered gold's safe haven appeal. However, traders still think gold is likely to stay close to that $1,900 per barrel level just until the U.S. presidential election outcome becomes clearer. And a quick look at copper now. Prices dipped over coronavirus concerns, but China's upbeat macro data suggested a promising demand outlook next year, and that's despite weak physical demand for now in the market. Let's head into a short break, still to come. We go on a fishing expedition in one of Nigeria's largest fishing settlements. And we'll tell you why one of Africa's biggest retail consumers are now turning to thrifting instead.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia,
Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. And no one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Well, let's go to Nigeria now. The country has seen an uptick in small-scale fishers amid the coronavirus pandemic. The West African nation has a coastline stretching more than 850 kilometers. The growing number of fishers is in turn driving growth in other businesses in the sector. Here's CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam. She visited a traditional boat maker in Ibono, one of the country's largest fishing settlements.
Sawing and hammering, one piece after another. Effiong Okon piecing all the elements together. He's been in the boat-making business for over 3 decades. Depending on the size, Okon charges between $420 to $500 for just the wooden boat. It takes him about a week to complete it.
I make around 40,000 naira per sale after expenses. And I am motivated to do this business because it helps me earn a living for me and my family. I hope to expand my business to some other part of this community.
Boat making and boat rentals are highly lucrative businesses here in Akwa Ibom. The southeastern Nigerian state has some of the largest fishing settlements. That's where Okon gets most of his patronage.
The boats are made from very good materials. When we buy them from him, we decorate it however we please for ease of identification. Each boat costs 180,000. Painting and accessorizing brings it to about 200,000 naira. Then we spend another 1.8 million naira on the outboard engine cost.
But like the fishing business, Okon's business booms during the high season from March to November.
Times when fishing activities are low and business is slow. I could stay for 3 months without building a boat. If I'm lucky enough, I may get a job to repair a boat.
Despite seasonal lulls, Okon is looking to expand his business in the near future.
I intend to open up another workshop and send some of my trainees there. That will bring in some more income for us.
Local fishers in the area say an estimated 50 boats bring in fish from the sea weekly. Unemployment has continued to surge across the country amid the coronavirus pandemic. It's led to a higher demand for boats as people turn to fishing as an alternative source of income. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Ibono, Nigeria.
Meanwhile, people in South Africa are now more conscious about their spending after feeling the pinch of the COVID-19 lockdown. Consumers who had their pockets squeezed are now reluctant to splash out on the latest fashions. For instance, here's CGTN's Julie Shire reporting.
As life slowly returns to normal in South Africa, some habits are changing. Second-hand clothes are becoming trendy. And this little charity store in Durban is seeing a spike in donations and bargain buying.
With having so many donations, we're now able to sell a lot more than we were selling originally. So we've definitely noticed, people that can't afford to go and buy new outfits can come here. They can get nearly brand new outfits at half the price or even less than half the price.
Thrift stores aren't tied down to the latest fashion trends, and consumers can find just about anything they're looking for.
So you can come in at summer, you get a winter shirt or winter jacket. Sometimes a gown, that the design, maybe you'll never see the design again next year. They'll bring a new design. So you always find good stuff and stuff that you'll never find in a shop sometimes, but you would find it here with us.
Younger and more environmentally conscious designers who grew up on thrifting are adding it to their funky fashion lines. Streetwear fashion brand Refuse Clothing creates its collections mainly from old garments.
We went through a phase where we just only wore thrifts. Thrifts were everything. It was you wear a bougie outfit, but people don't know where you got it. And to us, how much it was never mattered because we were buying these things for close to nothing.
For me personally, it was more about I'm getting to learn more about clothes. I make clothes, so I started, touching clothes that I've never even touched before, like leather biker jackets. I've never touched it before, I've always wanted it, but then I get it close to nothing.
Thrifting could reverse the trend of fast fashion in the next 10 years if more consumers turn to sustainable fashion. Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And before we leave you, a quick look at Africa's currencies today. Nigeria's naira remaining stable against the dollar on the official and parallel markets. Now it closed at around 461 naira per dollar on the black market as currency traders resume business activities after state governments relaxed the curfew. Meanwhile, South Africa's rand rallying against the dollar, extending a week-long run. Analysts are saying that may end soon as we await the outcome of Wednesday's budget speech, which could be a downside risk for the currency. Well, that's it for this edition of Global Business Africa. Remember, you can send your feedback to the contacts on your screen. You can also follow us on our various digital media platforms. From me, Uche Okoronkwo, and the rest of the team, thanks for watching.